Yeah, it's recycling is also something new here, but I think it's also, it should be the awareness of people. Like in Mongolia, I felt like that movement has started because it's so small. It's a population of only 4 million people,
Oh wow.
and they really like Mongolian people are so proud that they're Mongolians, and they're so united. Like they really care about their homeland. And I think that's when the movement starts for this kind of projects, whether
Yeah.
it's sustainable development or like environmental project. It has to start from like a single person's mind.
Yeah.
Think like realizing what he wants to leave behind. So
I
I don't know. How did you feel anything like that in Galapagos?
I think there's it's also hard, I think, when people um so what you're saying about Mongolia is interesting, how united they are and how they have this sort of this this pride in being Mongolian and taking care of their country and their land and feeling like they have ownership.
Mm-hmm.
I think the 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 idea of power and ownership, or maybe empowerment and ownership,
Yeah,
um,
yeah, exactly.
is super important. Um, because I think most people take pride in where they are and where they live, and people love their homes and want to see them be beautiful and be healthy. I think the problem is that a lot of the time people don't feel like they can, either because of money or because someone else owns the land or because, you know, someone else is dictating some aspect of their lives that prevents them from really taking that ownership and feeling like they have that agency to change things. And
Mm.
I feel like that was a little bit the case in Galapagos, is people. Um, so the way it was set up was there was most of the Galapagos is a protected area. Um, so the land and the sea is protected nature reserve. I think it's like 95%. Don't quote me on that, but I think that's about that much. Um,
Okay.
and then the other 5 to 10% is where the people live.
Mm.
And the marine park and the national park is managed by the National Park Service, so the government manages that. Um, and then the people are sort of left to their own devices in this other part. So it's very, very distinct where the people live versus the park.
Mm.
And I think that creates, I mean, when we were there, we saw it created quite a bit of tension between, for example, the fishermen who's these artisanal fishermen who take very small amounts of fish or
Mm.
seafood, um, mostly for their families and for the community, um, because this is their livelihood,
Right.
the fishing in these areas, and so the fact that the government was managing this area where they fished created a tension because the fishermen didn't feel like they didn't feel like they had any power or any sort of control over their own livelihoods.
Mm.
And um, that was one of the key conflicts was between even though they kind of wanted the same thing, like the National Park Service um, and the fishermen both wanted a healthy marine environment, and they both wanted plentiful fish, and they
Mhm.
both wanted the same thing essentially, but they were kind of at odds because they had different ideas about how to get there, and the government, of course, had more power than the artisanal fishermen and could impose these rules, which may not actually have benefited the fishermen. And these conflicts and these tensions are all over the world. They're everywhere.
Mhm. Right.
Wherever you have governments, wherever you have national parks, wherever you have these protected areas, these conflicts exist.
Mhm. For full episodes, go to solopacker.com.